Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner.
And our dog, Betty White.
Your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After owning our own business, working 24/7.
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
We made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jerry.
Betty White is hanging here with us, as always, and we're back for episode 90 of the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Oh, golly, it is September already. Almost fall. Time is flying by. It's the time of year when the days get shorter and the weather cools down that we find ourselves getting a little down. So we wanted to talk about that today and ways to cope with the seasonal changes.
Yes. But first, before we get into this, because it is an important part of our lives and our journey, we're recording this on Saturday morning, which is September 2nd. So by the time this airs, it'll be Tuesday. But we woke up to the news that Jimmy Buffett passed away, which is just insane, right?
I think so. Yeah, he seemed pretty young, although he was
76.
He seemed a very young 76.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've said this to a few people who have been texting this morning that I felt like he would probably live to be 100. He would be one of those people to live to be 100. But it's just, Jimmy Buffett, if you're a long time follower of our blog, you already know that Jimmy Buffett's music plays an important role in our lives and our whole journey. And, we used to listen to Jimmy Buffett Radio Margaritaville all the time before we had our big lifestyle change. And when we moved here, we listen to it every weekend. Our backyard time is Radio Margaritaville. He's just, like so many other people can say, his music is sort of a soundtrack to their life. And I feel like for us, definitely a soundtrack to our lifestyle here and living by the ocean and, sort of that simple, free living that Jimmy Buffett lifestyle kind of promotes.
Yeah, very well said. I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
Pretty nicely.
You sound very NPR right now. Well, today's episode is, like Jerry said, about how to cope with autumn anxiety, seasonal affective disorder. So we're definitely well versed in this arena as we both suffer from this. When the like Jerry said, the days seem a little drearier and the weather changes. Yeah, we've talked about it before on the HSP episode, but we're going to delve more into it about the seasonal affective disorder.
And in case you're unaware, seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is a type of depression. It happens during certain seasons of the year, mostly fall and winter, although it can happen spring and summer, but it's more typical for fall and winter. It's thought that the seasonal transition, like the shorter days, colder weather, and gloomy days, can trigger chemical changes in the brain, which may bring on symptoms of depression.
Yeah. And before we get into this, please note, we are not physicians nor healthcare providers. So if you're experiencing depression or any other, mental health issues, we do encourage you to seek help from a professional. We're simply sharing ways that we work to cope with the anxiety and symptoms this time of year.
Yeah. So, and I can reflect back. There wasn't a name for it then, but I can think back to, I think, my teens, like high school years, when there was just a different feeling or a little bit of a down thing in come September, October, around that time. And so that goes back with me for a pretty long time, but it's just that now they have a word for it.
Yeah, like so many things.
Right.
Especially in the mental health arena, there's so many words for things that we used to experience that we didn't know.
Yeah.
We talk about it a lot this time of year. well, a little bit later, but it does start now, right? It does definitely start when September hits. You're like, oh, okay, that time of year is coming.
Yep.
And
it's still a little summery, but you can feel hints of that cycle of the year.
Yeah. And a lot of people, there's not, I mean, it's kind of what they call the cozy hygge season. And that's really cool. And we love that type of thing. We love the coziness of pumpkins and, the colored leaves and all that stuff. But
candles.
Can we love our candles? It does get a little gloomier. And so, I've talked about this example before. When I was in Alaska, and I went on that Alaskan cruise, by midweek, I was really, I mean, there's no other word for it. I was really depressed. I mean, even though I was just in this area that was so gorgeous, bucket list things I was seeing, it was so rainy and gloomy that to me, it was really playing a huge role in the way that I was feeling throughout the day. Like I just needed sun so badly. And, we actually went whale watching on this whale watching boat, and I think it was Juneau. And I remember the captain saying to us, he was from California, and he's like, "Did you know that they make these lamps that really bring on like fake sunlight?" Because he's like, I didn't even know those things existed. I didn't know there was a vitamin D deficiency, because he had experienced sun all the time. And so in Alaska, he really felt those issues when he first moved there and didn't understand what was happening. And then people who hadn't been from there their whole lives told him about it. So we're just going to kind of go through some of the things that you can do if you experience it. Yeah. And then they might not work for you. They work for us. And so we thought we would share it.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing you think of if you have extreme symptoms is I need help, I need therapy. But therapy is also, you don't have to have extreme symptoms. It can be good for anybody. It could be good for keeping you from getting to extreme symptoms. If therapy's your thing, if it's something you enjoy and it works for you, of course that can be an expense too. So it's just something, one of those things people would have to decide for themselves.
Yeah. And there are some free services out there. Some of the counties offer, across the U.S. offer some free mental health. Unfortunately, a lot of mental health programs have been cut for the past few years. So there's not as many free services as there were, but we've talked about this before. If you go to Mental Health Match, you can put in there that if you don't have insurance or you can't afford it, and there's a sliding scale for finding a therapist who you can work with either in your area or virtually. So we really encourage that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the next one is exercise. I feel like so many of these things, when we talk about reducing stress, anything in any of the podcasts we talk about or any of the blogs, that comes up, right? It's just like always.
Hey, well, it's that time of year again, and we can't wait to tell you about our very favorite soy candles from Southern Oak Artisan.
Yes, they're a trusted sponsor of the episode, have been for a while, but we love their products. They are 100% natural soy candles. One of the things that we love any time of year, but especially in the cozy season, are our candles all around the house.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, and you're right. All times of the year. In fact, in the summertime, sometimes we hate that we don't feel we can light them because it's just too warm. But man, it takes a lot not to light those candles.
Yeah.
And these candles are made with non-toxic ingredients, and which makes for a safe and enjoyable breathing around the house.
They have pumpkin scents this time of year, apple. There's some seasonal things for the fall and the winter. And they are non-toxic, like Jerry said. They're not overpowering scents. They're clean. And they come in these little jars that once you burn it, by the way, soy burns clean. So you can reuse the jars for, I don't know, you can put some seedlings in there. You can put some earrings and jewelry in there, whatever you want to do, storage in the kitchen. It's just really nice.
Oh, and they look good anywhere. They would look good anywhere in your house, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, super nice. Well, if you want to take advantage of a discount that Southern Oak Artisan is extending to you, go to arneradventures.com/Southern Oak Artisan. Or you can make sure that you go to our show notes where it will be linked there.
There you go. It does, and it's my favorite. Definitely, I love my exercise.
And I know that you've talked about before how there's certain exercises that help you.
I think so, and we're just to mention too. Not just the physical end of it, but I think for me, like where you do it, like I think it's neat to be outside, or here we get the option of being close to the ocean. So you get. I've just never been one to be in a gym that much, around a bunch of steel and concrete, so and clanky noises. So there's just all kinds of things you can do. I like being outside cycling, or we play a little tennis, or just taking a good walk.
Yeah. And like you said, when you take walks in nature, even though it is the time of year that things quote unquote are dying in nature, there's plenty of color, especially like in the winter. You can find color, of course. Yeah, we do live by the ocean, so we can find some ocean blues. But if you just take a walk in the forest or anywhere in winter, you can find a bit of color,
Well, and
here
I think
there.
the mornings are a little more optimal this time of year too. The mornings are really neat for just fall, things are dying, but the morning colors and the crisp air, that's essential.
Well, speaking of mornings,
and we said, a crisp sunny morning is just a great time to be out exercising. I've always noticed after about 2 p.m. in the fall, and especially winter, you can really sort of feel that day just sort of going towards you're getting closer to the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whereas 2 p.m. in the summer, it's like the height of the sun, and it's bright and sunny. But after about 2 p.m. in the fall and winter, I like my morning early half of the day in the fall winter. Let's put it that way.
Even this morning we were saying, Betty, we didn't have to get up early, but Betty got us up at 6, and we're just like, oh my God, the alarm's not even on, Betty. But we just said it makes us feel so much better when we do get up and sort of just go ahead and enjoy the morning hours. Rather, even if you sleep till if we sleep till like 8 or even a little bit later, you just start feeling like, we feel that way. We're just like, what? I don't know. It's just like we just need to enjoy that morning time. We're very morning routine people.
Yeah, I was going to say 8 seldom happens anyway, so we really don't worry about it, because typically 6:30 would be about the latest, I think, for us.
Yeah. Well, the next thing may seem obvious, or it may seem like, why are they pointing this out? But diet. So this is difficult for us, but avoiding or cutting back on alcohol. We do love to have, especially when it starts cooling down a little bit, more porch time. Yeah. Because here in the South, the mosquitoes aren't eating us as much. And it's nice to just sort of have some warmer clothes and just sit on the porch, and or even out back by the fire pit. It's just really nice. And it's nice to pair a glass of wine with that, or a beer. And if you just cut back on it, it's a known depressant. Alcohol is. So why add the negative depressing chemical to you if you're already experiencing something like that?
If you're already susceptible, it is something you got to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And also getting the proper nutrition, eating your greens. And we have found that if you add more color to your food, people think about adding color to their food in the summer, but if you do that in the winter, it does help kind of stabilize your mood a bit.
Yeah, it sure does. And in a faster paced lifestyle, it's easier to grab just whatever you need because you're hungry, so you don't think out your meals as good. So it is something to pay attention to if you're in some hurried days, that you're not just grabbing away at anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, light therapy. So we've already talked about the natural light, which is, important, especially towards this time of the year before 2 p.m., the morning light. You can't always get that. There's a thing called a happy lamp or a happy light.
Yeah.
And it's a lamp you can buy. It's for light therapy, and it's when you can't get your natural sunlight.
Yeah, I have one that on rainy days in the summer, I pull it out. I do use it a lot in the winter. It's small. I have it here on my desk, and I'll actually link it down in the show notes. Super affordable. And it really does help. it sort of brings on some light that does feel a little bit like sunlight. So I don't know. I think that there's some studies that prove how light therapy really helps, but it's an easy way that if you're just looking for a simple change, you can just bring in that little lamp, or you can go larger. There's plenty of larger ones if you want to do your whole house with them. I know that there's certain bulbs that are the same that you can shop for, but we'll link my little happy lamp down in the show notes.
In the show notes, yeah. And I have talked to a few people personally who have used those and felt that they helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so the next one is setting boundaries and priorities. Ooh, we talk about boundaries a lot. It's something that I struggle with a lot. And
Me too.
okay, that actually makes me feel better that you said that, because I don't feel like you do struggle with it.
Oh, I think I do a little bit. I think I'm a little bit of a people pleaser. And when you're that, if you have those tendencies, you might tend to just want to please somebody and let down your boundaries and not think about what you need to do for yourself first to be your best self.
So especially all times of year, but especially if you are experiencing symptoms from seasonal affective disorder, really hone in on setting your boundaries and your priorities of self-care ahead of all else. I just had this conversation yesterday, I think, with someone where I was saying how I've worked so hard to get to a place where my life has, kind of runs like a well-oiled machine. Like I'm very routine, very regimented. And when things sort of veer out of that and I allow a disruption of that, it really affects me. Whether you are a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, a business owner, or anyone who handles any kind of marketing, we can't wait to tell you about one of our trusted partners, Flowdesk.
Yes, say goodbye to complicated email marketing platforms. Flowdesk is the ultimate productivity tool that simplifies everything, making your life just a lot easier.
Yeah. We used to rely on MailChimp. You've probably heard of all the email platforms, MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot has one. And look, if you're using those, that's fine. Do whatever you want to do. But if you want to up your game and guess what? Save some money. The aesthetics with Flowdesk alone are going to sell you if you just go in and try it out.
Eye-catching layouts and all kinds of beautiful creations come with Flowdesk.
Just as a business owner, you really do need to be communicating with your audience via newsletter. So if you aren't doing that, you could go ahead and just start with Flowdesk. I tell people all the time that when you are only depending on your audience community being social media, you're really setting yourself up as a disservice, because you don't have those people's emails. If something happens with Meta today, all the people that follow you or you connect with on social media platforms are gone. So you really do need to be building a community via email so that you can communicate with them that way if you have a product or service.
We've secured a special 50% off link for you to try out Flowdesk. Experience its incredible features and see the difference for yourself. Once you fall in love with it, which we know you will, you'll also save money on your subscription.
That's right. Don't miss out on that offer. You can go to arneradventures.com/Flowdesk and give it a try. And I was thinking as we were preparing for this episode, this is going to be a great reminder for me to make sure going into this season where we're definitely affected, that I do put my self-care ahead of all else, and that I stick to those boundaries of, time batching my work and all these different things that I know help me. I just need to make sure that I do that. So anyway, it's something that I think would help anyone, is to put a little self-care ahead of everything else during this time.
Oh yeah, these are all great reminders for us right now, just to be going through this.
Yeah.
Socializing is important too. It's easy to isolate, I think, when you're having issues. Maybe a little more easy in the cold months too, because it's cold outside and you're not doing as much. And when you're socializing, you're exchanging ideas with people, you might find that other people are feeling the same way you are.
I think we're all scared to sort of talk about especially depression. We've talked about this in other episodes, that anxiety is really quick to come up in conversation. Oh, I'm feeling so anxious. Oh, I have so much anxiety. But very rare do you hear someone saying, you know what, I'm really experiencing some depression. And I think if we talk about that and we normalize that more, I think we would find that other people would say, you know, I'm sort of feeling that way lately. I am too. But, you know, you do hear people saying, I have the blahs, or,
Mhm.
you know, I'm just feeling kind of grumpy or down. I'm not sure why. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter how you say it. If you just want to talk about it, I think that you will find that there's some other people who do struggle this time of year,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's very common.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's not just from recordings from the 1940s, the blues, you know, it's everyday life. Although there's some great stuff that came out of that.
You know, I also, when you were talking about isolation, especially in the winter, I think COVID really made it where we sort of became a little more accustomed to isolation. Some people, you know, when soon the gates opened, but when restrictions lifted, they felt like, oh my gosh, I just have to go out gangbusters and just get involved with everyone.
Yeah.
But I've talked about before, I was very social pre-COVID, and something sort of shifted with COVID that I was like, I just kind of enjoy my space. I enjoy my alone time. I enjoy us kind of having this bubble here. There was something I don't know, really good about that time for me, but also I could see how it affected me socially. I am better about it now than I was like last year. But yeah, I think talking in your social circles or getting out and socializing, especially in the winter, is good.
It
So it's a
is.
good
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
Well, with that being said, do things that make you feel good. So you may not realize it if you're not someone who regularly volunteers or even volunteers a couple times a year. Um, Go find something that makes you happy, whether it's volunteering at an animal shelter or whether it's offering to help a senior on your street, you know, do something, take the trash out. It could be little things, acts of service, but volunteering can be very rewarding. Gardening, you know, we talk about our garden, but you can start a fall garden.
Oh, I think we just like yard work in general
We
too. Like
do.
we're excited about picking up all the branches and sticks out of the yard from our storm the other day,
Yeah.
and we're gonna go do that.
We are
Mhm.
after our podcast recordings
Yeah.
today.
Mhm.
We're going to get in the yard. And we're so excited.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, even in the winter, I think that's also why our evenings in the winter we do like the fire pit and we get outside. Like most people are like, you go outside and it's cold, and you know, we have our get outdoors challenge that you can look at, and it works any time of year. So, you know, just bundle up a little bit more. And, you know, we still take our walks in the morning when it's super cold. The older I get, the more my hands feel it.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, getting outside, it really, really is really helpful. Go see a movie, find some friends and
Mhm.
go to a wine tasting, but don't do too much because it's a depressant.
Yeah.
But go
Yeah.
find things to do that
Uh-huh.
make you feel good,
Yeah.
that are not harmful.
Movies used to be one of my favorite events, but
Me
that's not
too.
something we often do. Well, we did them back in Raleigh because there were some independent movie theaters.
Yeah, I don't
And
think there's any indie film theaters here, but even a regular theater, we haven't been since
no,
post-COVID.
nuh-uh. But I've never really liked the huge multiplex theaters too
Yeah.
much. I like an older small movie theater.
Yeah.
So there's not
Yeah.
that here, but you know, if you have one in your area, utilize it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, why don't you talk about melatonin? Because you've read a lot about that, and I think that I wanted you to talk about it.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, melatonin, because I use it here and there for sleeping. Sometimes when I just really need that good night's sleep, and it does work. But I realized after some time I didn't like using it maybe more than once a week. It's just that thing when you need it here and there. And then I read something recently too. Like there is already melatonin in your body. I think that's what helps you sleep. So when you use it, it just boosts that. But that can bring on the blues too. And I thought to myself, you know, sometimes, yeah, melatonin, I get that good night's sleep, but the next day I just feel a little bit, oh, you know, melancholy from it, and like you feel slightly depressive. And so that's something you got to be careful with if you use melatonin for sleep, although it can be helpful at the same time.
Yeah. As we were preparing for this, we were talking about how, along with most people, especially when everything shut down, we really struggled with sleeping during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we just had really weird hours and we were taking melatonin a lot. And now that I'm thinking about it, it probably did not help our mood the next day, because if you're already kind of struggling with the situation and then you're taking melatonin, but
it was new to us at the time, so we really didn't know much of anything.
And you had to kind of gauge how much we needed to take and all that. Like, you take a lot less than I take.
Oh, yeah. So I just tend to be med sensitive a little bit anyway, and Shannon is not.
Yeah. Well, so those are little bite-sized things that we hope help. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So be gentle with yourself. I have to remind myself of that all the time, that I need to be more gentle with myself, give myself some grace, and that baby steps are great. It's good to take baby steps, and as long as you're moving forward with getting better about something or in a positive direction, that's really what matters.
It's not the destination, it's the journey.
That's right.
Boy, you can apply that to just about anything.
It's all about the adventure.
Right. Adventure, the journey.
Uh-huh.
Well, we hope this helped you learn more about how to cope with autumn winter blues. I know it was all a great reminder for us sitting here talking about it to you. And the autumn winter blues are, of course, seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD.
And if you want to know more about HSP, which we talked about a little bit, highly sensitive, if you're a highly sensitive person, that's where we sort of talked about some of these things also in another episode. We're going to link that down in the show notes. The episode, we're going to put an HSP quiz. We have a toolkit for maneuvering as an HSP. All that's linked down in the show notes.
Yeah.
And
it's very useful stuff. They say about 15 to 20% of the population might be considered an HSP, highly sensitive person. Although I think it's a bit of a spectrum, so that's debatable.
Because I have HSP tendencies, but just with certain things. But and if you don't know, the whole reason we're talking about HSP is that anyone can experience these things, but if you're an HSP, I guess it tends to be more of an issue.
It's a trait that's just a personality trait like so many others, but it's a specific trait that 15 to 20% of the population appear to have. And it's really interesting stuff too.
So just settle in, and as Jimmy Buffett would say, breathe in, breathe out, move on.
Oh, I like that.
Me too.
If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from anything we talked about today, or any episode, our guests, or anything, please share it with a friend. It's a great way of supporting the podcast and us, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review rating on the platform you're listening to us on. Oh, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because that also supports us. We would love that.
You can always find us, links we refer to during the show, and any of the podcast sponsors at arneradventures.com, or linked here in these show notes. And until next time, enjoy that journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Adios.
Arrivederci.
Au revoir.
Adios.
Sayonara.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Dos vidaniana.